Lewis, why do relationships fail and why do we choose the wrong partners?
Relationships are designed perfectly to fail and to fail perfectly. Everything in this world is relationship. It's how you relate with another on the same ship you're on. Relate I on a ship, relationship. And so it's people on a ship are on the same boat, on the same ship, heading in a certain direction. And so relationships are about bringing us together, bringing our fractured reflections, our mirrors into our awareness. And relationships are about polarity. So polarized, same level consciousness relationships, same level consciousness beings polarized are attracted to one another. So what we call attraction or love in this world, which is really attraction, desire, lust, is perfectly designed to bring two polarized mirrors into each other's lives in order to reflect the hidden self, the hidden true self, and also and expose the identity, the erroneous egoic identity. So relationships fail because of expectation. We expect to have an heavenly experience in hell. So as spirit beings, fractured selves are projected into this dualistic illusion, and we've projected simply to remember the self. We have projected in order to make known the forgotten self, which is the reality of what we are. So we've projected into this holographic universe, holographic planet, in order to experience what we are through the experience of what we're not. In Advaita Vedanta, the process is called the neti neti. I'm not this, I'm not that. So through a series of self-inquiry and deductive analysis, we start to remember what we are through the experience of what we're not. And relationship, because we invest ourselves, our separate self-identity fully into the relationship, where we believe two halves join and become one. We fully invest in it. And when two false identities invest into one another, they're going to be exposed. And so we move into relationships hoping to feel loved by the other person. And of course, that initial attraction, that initial lust and desire, we see no wrong. And as we fall into these passionate experiences, at first it's amazing. And then those parts of ourselves that is hidden then get exposed over a period of time. And there's a joke that says, men marry women hoping that from that day onwards she'll never change, and women marry men hoping that from that day they start to change him. And so we move into relationships with two completely opposite agendas, hoping that the other person will make us feel complete, will always make us feel loved, will never criticize us, never criticize the projection of our identity, and hopefully we will feel loved forever. And yet, as we change and as our bodies age, we start to shift and change, and our goals change and our desires change, and we start to lose the attraction. And as soon as you add criticism from either party, we start to feel attacked and we start to get defensive as our identity starts to break down. And this person who saw us as perfect now starts to criticize, and we needed them to see us perfect. And so that identity which we depended on for our happiness, and that other person who we depended upon for our happiness, now no longer is perfect and no longer sees us as perfect. And so the idea of our projected perfection is then tarnished. And so we start to become unhappy. And we invest in the other person, hoping that other person is going to love us completely. And when that investment doesn't give us a positive return, the investment fails, and we then start to look elsewhere. And so relationships fail because they then force us, after many failed relationships, to eventually get to that point of surrender when we look inwards and say, there has to be a better way. And so if you look at the relationships in the world, they are perfectly designed. We come into each other's space, we become less of ourselves, we take on a little bit more of the fractured self, when we start to realize the completion in ourself. And it's only when we turn inwards and investigate, and through the path of forgiveness realize that there's nothing more to forgive, and that we've created all of this and not even ourselves to forgive, because it was perfectly designed in order to remember the self. Relationships are no longer failure, because they're the exact process and experience that brings us into fully self-realized. Now, if you have two people fully self-realized in a relationship, you get to that point where you start to realize, I love you, but I don't need you. It is unconditional. You come and go as you are, be as you are. There's no need for me to impose any form of rule. And because from a place of self-realization, there is also fully the knowing of one's being, which means there's a complete understanding. We love unconditionally, and so we serve one another. You're in a relationship wanting to serve the highest self in ourself and in the other. And so relationships don't really fail, but really help us move in the direction of true success. And what is success? The full realization of the self, the full realization, I am the Holy Son of God, who is awakening to the reality that I but fell asleep, had a tiny mad idea where I thought I could be separated from my source. And so why do we choose the wrong people? We don't choose the wrong people. We choose the exact right people. We choose the mirrors of ourselves. And if you look back on your past, and you look back on your past from a place of love, present in the heart, you realize that through the different phases of your life, you were attracting birds of a feather flock together. You were attracting similar aspects of you were attracting your mirrors into your life to show you how you were acting out. So in the Bible, there's that wonderful verse that says, as a man judges, so he is judged. By whom? Certainly not by God. God does not judge, but by his own judgmental standards. So as you judge the world, you judge yourself by the same measurement. So, we attract the perfect people into our space to show us our imperfect identity, our body-mind imperfection, our body-mind imperfect projections, where we project into the world because we're searching to feel complete. We're searching for love. We're searching to know the love we are. And yet God's Holy Spirit that calls us through ourself as the self pulls us into these relationships, sets these perfect, imperfect relationships up, draws us into the exact wrong people. Nobody's wrong, but the exact wrong people to show up the spots in the mirror, the reflections that are unhealed. And it's only when we return to the self and fully self-realize as that I amness, the essential nature of the divine self, which is made from the same essence as its creator. If we then move back into the world from a place of serving, you'll realize that law of attraction is still happening, because the dream existing in the dreamer's mind exists in God. The dreamer is in God. So God's law of reciprocity, God's law of one, is still playing out even in the dream. And so once where we attracted our identity mirrors, our identity fractures into our experience, from this place of love, we then attract like-minded consciousness. So we then attract similar level awakening into our space. And should we then decide to move into companionship, relationship, you will be attracting into your space, into your awareness, someone who is equally aware as you. And again, it'll be a place of unconditional love where I love you, but I don't need you. And yet, if I love without need, I love unconditionally. And if I love to serve the rest of my selves, and I'm in a relationship with someone who's doing exactly the same, can you imagine this holy communion, this holy companionship. Ram Dass wrote a book called Walking Each Other Home. And this really becomes where we walk each other home in holy communion, holy companionship, where we looking inwards first and foremost to the self, the Holy Son of God self, which is one with its Father, one with its Creator. And then companionship simply is a continuous reminder, stay on track, stay unconditional, stay without expectation, be as you are, be that self, be that I amness. And what was once the unbearable lightness of being, the projected fractured self, becomes the blissful lightness of being, where to equal consciousness, I amness, walk each other home. And that's why relationships are designed to fail. And that's why we attract what appears to be the wrong people into our life until we fully realize. And after that, it matters not whether you attract someone into your life, because you are the love you've sought your whole life. But amazingly, when you've become that, you attract the exact same essence into your life, and you'll recognize it as that divine I am essence fully realized. You'll walk into a room and you'll immediately attract and be attracted to same level resonance. And that becomes a most amazing way to live. And then there's a fear that once we let go of the identity, the world will lose flavor. We will lose our desire to play in the world, whether it be, in my case, to ride a motorcycle, or someone wants to travel, tourism, or see different sites, or paint, or go to work, or run a company, or create something. You'll do what you've always done. Your essential passionate nature, which is the essence of what you are, will want to play. But whereas in the separate identity self, you wanted to play and you wanted to do all those activities because you wanted to feel loved or attract love, you'll now want to express the love you are. And so I often like to say, I used to race motorcycles because I wanted to be happy. And now because I'm happy, I ride my motorcycle. So life now becomes an expression of that completed self, that self which is fully aware of itself as the Holy Son, and that what I look upon is pure perfection, and what appears to be sleeping body minds are just the self in process of realization. I'm looking upon myself, and the judgment that we once had of this world just somehow disappears, and life just becomes a gentle, peaceful, loving experience where you look forward to meeting, because everything becomes an opportunity to surrender to I am and to serve the awakening of our fractured self.